Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today over spring break. We are excited to have you here. This is our continuation of the ICAP webinar series, and today's webinar is focused on ICAP and alternative education. My name, of course, is Chelsea Hunt. I am the Career Pathway Strategy Lead. And today we are just going to go through a few things. The first thing is I'm going to share with you some new ICAP resources. The second thing you will hear from one of our voices in the field, Jennifer Wilkinson, who is the Director of Alternative Education here at the State Department. And then I will touch base on our next webinar. And then we will have a way for you to continue to stay connected with us. So on March 4th of 2019, it was just this recent, the State Department released tools to help districts in individual career academic planning. The first tool that you will see, that's our OK Edge website. And this website is really just aimed at preparing Oklahoma students for life beyond high school. It is a website that is catered to students and families, business and community, and educators. We also released our ICAP Toolkit. It's our ICAP Implementation Toolkit, and it's a resource that can be used to strengthen ICAP implementation. What's really good about this toolkit is that it was created by a counselor cadre. About 10 of them really took the time to make sure that they gave good suggestions and advice for how to implement ICAP at your district. And then our last resource that just launched as well is our OSDE Connect, and this is our online learning community, really designed to encourage that networking between students, educators, and Oklahoma business and community leaders. So if you get an opportunity, you will also get this PowerPoint once it is over. Please check out those new links, those resources. They are great tools to help as we prepare for ICAP in really right around in August of 2019. So now I want to introduce to you Jennifer Wilkinson, again, the Director of Alternative Education.
All right, good afternoon. I am excited that we have a few of you that were able to join us today. As we're working through these slides, I want you to be thinking about your alternative education program and how you guys are serving those students most at risk, and how things you're doing already kind of align to ICAP. Like Chelsea said, I am the Director of Alternative Education. Our office oversees compliance and evaluation of 317 alternative education programs across the state. We also provide technical assistance to these programs as well as professional development, solely geared to working with your most at-risk populations. The district-wide student needs assessment and the dropout report are also reports that come through this office. So anything that really has to align with at-risk comes through us. So what is alternative education? I have these very broad statements that kind of oversee, as I know I have 317 programs, and even my trauma-informed programs look very different in how they're serving their students and who they're bringing in to help serve their students. Or if I have career-focused programs, those look very different. So I've got 317 programs that look very different, but they all kind of have these statements that they ensure. And they have student-driven programming that demonstrates understanding and sensitivity. This is really important. For one reason or another, these students have disengaged from the academic setting, from the school setting. And so understanding and being sensitive to the story they're bringing back into that setting, it will help build that bridge to get them reconnected, but it will also help you build that bridge to a relationship, a rapport, to keep them moving forward. You have to make informed decisions about their post-secondary goals based on individual needs, interests, and skills. This is a partnership between the student, the parent, and the school. This isn't a punitive program. These students aren't placed in this program. It's just a program as if you had a gift and talent program, a special ed program, an art program, a STEM program. And so we need to remember that all three of those participants have to make informed decisions about the student. They have to provide time and opportunity to become college and career ready. We know sometimes because our students are disengaged, they want to negotiate that bare minimum that they have to do. And so we have to really balance that bare minimum with what's going to help them transition to whatever next steps they have. And relevance of the academics is important. To keep them engaged, they have to know why they're doing what they're doing. And so that helps with providing those learning opportunities outside of the school setting through collaborative activities and partnerships. And then the last one that we have to, as an alternative program, we have to provide a holistic approach and provide a safe and secure environment that builds that connectedness. For one reason or another, our individuals, they don't necessarily feel safe in the academic setting, or they don't feel that connection. So we have to ensure that that happens. One of the requirements in Alt Ed this year that we had was that you have to give a climate culture survey. And I've had several programs contact me, and they talked about classroom setup and how they never would have thought that that came back as an issue for them, that students having their backs to the doors kept them from being fully in the moment in the classroom setting. And so we're really starting to look at those different safe and secure options for students. So who are at-risk students? So in the law, it says an at-risk student means a student whose present or expected status indicates they might fail to complete their secondary education for reasons which may include academic deficiency, behavioral difficulties, excessive absences, pregnancy or parenting, family issues, substance abuse, financial issues, physical or mental health issues, juvenile justice involvement, or other such factors, but this does not include disability status. And so we need to remember that that's a really broad definition, and so districts are given the opportunity to define their student need and then design programming appropriate for that student need. And so you may not have a pregnant or parenting issue, but you may have a low-income population that really needs extra support. Or you may have a pregnant or parenting concern in your community and really want to provide those extra supports to make those pregnant or parenting students more successful. So it's a local control then on what that specific definition and design of program is at the local level. And so ICAP, to me, kind of has two functions. It's a process that helps students engage in academics and career development activities, as well as a product that is created and maintained for students' academic, career, and personal advancement. And so just so that everybody's aware, currently there are pilot districts across the state. Next year, all 9th grade students are going to be required. But this has been in law, this individual graduation plan has been in the Alt Ed law since 1995. And so we're really super excited to be kind of allowing this for all students to happen. And we're excited because it's a multi-step process. It's not just a graduation checklist. Again, that checklist kind of says, here's the bare minimum to getting that diploma, but not necessarily helping transition students to next steps. And as an Alt Ed person, we can get in a student and we can get them stabilized and successful, but the closer we get to their graduation, we see them reverting back to those bad choices, those bad decisions, because adulting is scary. Those next steps are difficult to take when you don't have that safety net, that security that you've become reliant on. And so it's more than just a checklist, it's a process. So I always tell my alt-ed programs, you need to think of it as graduation plus a day and not to graduation, because they're going to need you to still hold that hand through that process. And so one of my counselors from Jim Thorpe Academy in Shawnee, she said that students are successful because of the methods the alternative school uses to reach each student's needs. Students are advised on a plan to graduate, a plan that usually involves a mix of independent credit recovery classes and small teacher-led courses. And when the student looks at the graduation plan, they see the light at the end of the tunnel, and they often become highly motivated to reach their goals. It's a way to give an at-risk student hope. So these next 17 slides, I really want to break down the alt-ed law. We need to remember that the alternative education law stipulates that all alternative education students receive every opportunity that a traditional student receives, plus these 17 criteria broken down to further support student success. And this law rolled out in 1994 for all districts. And so the first criteria is that we have a low student-to-teacher ratio conducive to effective learning for at-risk students. So this is for every one teacher, there are 15 students. Imagine if that was happening in the traditional setting. You've got a lot more one-on-one engagement. You've got a lot more one-on-one interaction that's very individualized to that student. So I may have one teacher running 15 different graduation plans and have 15 different students coming and going and doing different things. And we called it more of a blended approach. I may have 2 students going to career tech. I may have 1 student going to concurrent enrollment. I have 1 student that is in an internship, but I may have 3 students that are in work study, because work study is still an option under the alternative education law. A lot of times we have those adult students. They're already on their own. They're already adulting in the real world, but still trying to work through their high school setting. I also may have students that are doing service learning or going back into the traditional classroom, because again, they don't give up those opportunities for electives, for sports, for AP classes, for honors classes. And typically those aren't courses that are offered in the alt-ed setting. So you've got 15 kids going a lot of different directions. So it's easy to manage, or it's easier to manage, because you are maxed at 15 students. We have our second criteria is effective instruction. We need to remember that we have the same graduation requirements as all students in Oklahoma. We have not dumbed down or decreased our rigor for any reason. So we have to have that appropriate structure, curriculum, interaction, and reinforcement that meets those state standards. They should be getting those college and career-ready activities that define their career goals through hands-on skills. One of my favorite stories when I first started was I was visiting a night program, and she, 6 years ago, she was already giving the career interest inventory, and those kids had to do a lot of activities then throughout the year around their top 3 careers that came back. And one young man, his number one that came back was to be a park ranger. And so he was able to find a park ranger in the state that was willing to come and talk to their night program. And they had two speakers a week that came in. So throughout the year, they got to hear from lots of different professionals in the state on a wide variety. But it was his night. I was there. Park ranger was coming. He was dressed to the nines in his cowboy boots and his jeans, and he had his cowboy hat. He was so super excited. I mean, he was just thought he was going to come out of his skin. He was just so pumped. And he had to walk out, he had to walk out and meet the gentleman and introduce himself. He had to handshake. He had to do eye contact. All of those soft skills needed to be taught before And then he had to come in, he had to introduce his speaker. His speaker talked for like 30, 45 minutes on what a park ranger does. He thanked him, walked him back out to his car. He came back in and he said, I do not want to be a park ranger, because being a park ranger is very different from having the hobby of hunting and fishing and hiking and being outdoors. Managing the people was not what he really thought park rangering was, and so he was able to mark that off his list. But it's good to know up front what all involves a career. But he was still pumped, and they came up with that plan that night to start researching what that number 2 option for him was, and he still got to enjoy the outdoors. He just enjoyed it as a hobby. And so then we have that rigorous coursework as well as learning and assessment results that drive individual student decisions. And we also are requiring that RTI and PBIS strategies are implemented to support the student growth. Internships is mentorships and apprenticeships are a huge part of alternative education. And I've provided you again, with career tech, concurrent enrollment, service learning, work study, and these can include opportunities that build relationships, they improve skills, and you get to network in the community. It's a great way to promote our students and their successes. Sometimes a stigma comes with the term alternative education, and we need to understand that these students are just getting to the end in a different manner. And so here are some more pictures. Being able to spend the day intern with the fire department, with dental hygiene, with welding and auto mechanics, as well as a retirement home, vet. That's a screen printing shop right there where they were learning to do mass production, as well as a daycare. And these are pictures of actual alternative education students across the state. I do have permission to show them. Number 3 criteria is your intake and screening process. Like I said, the program is a school of choice. It's a partnership between the parent, guardian, the student, and the school. And so that partnership then has to sit down and develop a process to transition that student into the alt-ed program as well as out of that program. And we have to establish responsibilities and communication amongst all 3 of those parties when appropriate. And then you develop that plan for graduation and beyond that is holistic in nature that will engage all parties. So there is a parent component that is required in the alternative education program. But it really needs to focus on attendance, behavior, and course completion. These are also the ABCs of dropout prevention, as well as that 4th, extracurricular activities. And that really is pretty broad because you need to be able to connect that student to either something or someone to keep them engaged in the academic setting. Number 4 and number 5 have to do with faculty. We have to have certified teaching faculty. However, we focus more on the individual that has experience or personal traits that qualify them for successful work with at-risk students than we do with the greater content. As well as they have to have continued professional growth in areas that address your program and your student needs. And we have to have constant collaboration and support for development and maintenance through PLCs and staffing. Number 6 is our state and local collaboration. That means that we need to focus as much on what resources are coming in to support our students as what our students are doing out in the community to provide that resource to their community. We have to be able to make that connection, and we have to teach them that they play a role in their community. They have a voice, and they need to be an active, positive voice in that community. So we coordinate services across multiple organizations to meet student needs, but we also engage in activities that provide benefit to the community, like community service and service learning. We build relationships and trust through this activity, to establish a commitment to learning, but we also, again, break down that stigma of alternative education and those bad students, those bad kids. And they get to network with professionals in the community, practicing those soft skills. And those activities vary, some based on resources that are available. I have one of my alt ed directors is also mayor of his town, and so they decorate Main Street for all of the holidays. So they put out the hay bales and the scarecrows at Thanksgiving. They make sure that the wreaths and the lights go up for Christmas. And they do lots of those kinds. They pick up trash in the local park, those kinds of things. We have lots of partnerships with churches where they're working with the clothing and the food banks. They also help do landscaping at some of the churches, as well as lots of programs that go into retirement centers and elementary schools to provide services that are needed. Here you see pictures of students interacting with the Guthrie Chamber of Commerce. They helped, they went and they met with the Guthrie Chamber of Commerce on a weekly basis. This helped them make those professional acquaintances, and then were placed in internships. But it was a great way to ease into that partnership with the various businesses in Guthrie. Norman has a writing institute in late spring, and it's a partnership between the University of Oklahoma and the University of Chicago. And they Skype and meet with varied genres of authors, such as Gillian Flynn, which is the Gone Girl author. And out of that, one of those writing institutes, this young lady you see up here in the top, it's my right, hand corner, was able then to read her poem that she wrote in that institute at the National Alternative Education Conference. And she did a great job, but imagine overcoming a lot of obstacles and then presenting to 600 people from across the nation. They bring in lots of speakers like Alton Carter. Some of you may have had Alton Carter come into your program. And there are about half a dozen individuals in Oklahoma that have really overcome their obstacles and have written books or have become motivational speakers, and about hope and resilience. And they're great speakers then to bring in and talk to your group of kiddos. And so again, that's another way that we're connecting local and state collaboration. Number 7 is curriculum. Again, we need to make sure that we're connecting the relevance of education to their current needs and their future goals. They do want to always negotiate that bare minimum, but in connecting that relevance to future, will continue that engagement and will continue to raise that bar of what you're able to get out of them. Number 8 is individualized instruction. They have to understand their own interests, strengths, values, and styles, because we've got lots of learning modalities out there, and we've got 15 very individual kids. And so we have to offer a variety of learning activities and techniques that keep them actively engaged, and breaking up the day so that they're not getting stressed. Sometimes our kids are, we do have academic deficiencies, and so being able to break up that day in different learning modalities will keep them moving forward. I have one program that was able to acquire a school bus when the district had decided to get rid of some of the older buses, and they have started to build partnerships in their town, and they're going to make that school bus a tiny home. And so the first step was to bring in the mechanic and have kids actively engaged in getting all the mechanics of the school bus. And then their next step was to build a relationship with an interior decorator to even be like, what needs to be in a tiny home? What does that plan look like? And so he was hoping to have it done in a year, but it looks like it's going to go over a course of more years, because that does take some time. But those individuals, they'll work with welders, they'll work with plumbers, they'll work with electricians as they're going to turn this school bus into a tiny home. So that's been super excited to see happen over the school year. Number 9 is your goals and objectives. They need to be clear and measurable for overall programming that best serves your students, that it creates a vision of their student future, that it identifies students to design programs based on local student need, and that those students are gaining confidence to follow through with those future goals. I always talk about how alt ed has to provide that structure because, again, we have to provide that safety net for students, and structure is what works best for these kids. But we have to do it with flexibility because we know coming back they're going to make those mistakes, so we don't need to see it as 3 strikes and they're out. So you've got to provide that structure with flexibility. Counseling. Counseling is a huge component. We, again, have to maintain some stability in these students before they can academically achieve success. And so that becomes a combination of your academic counseling, your career counseling, but also has to be your emotional social counseling. And so they have to establish goals in all 3 of those areas. They need to know that social services are available to support them in those areas. And then again, we have to provide those support opportunities for parents as well. And so we have FAFSA nights in alt ed, just like traditional. We have study skills. We even have anger management courses out there happening. Number 11. Number 11 is our individual graduation plan. They have to develop individual goals that include post-secondary options and transitioning, but they have to prepare a personal plan for achieving their vision and goals. We give them a minimum that it has to be reviewed quarterly with both students and parents. But I have a number of programs that do it weekly with students and bi-weekly with parents. So really making sure that you're building that rapport, that relationship out there. And transition is key for alt ed kids. So making sure that you're building that trust and that relationship and that we're getting them transitioned out to those next steps. And when I talk about that parent guardian, we need to understand that a large number of these students won't have that parent guardian, and so our educators are becoming that person and being able to be comfortable in that role as they make that scary change to adulting. All right, so the ICAP process includes awareness. Now imagine an at-risk student, based on that definition from earlier, answering the question, who am I? And that who am I could be a 19-year-old with 3 credits on a 5th grade reading level. And so what are those steps going to need to be? What are those long-term plans going to need to be? What are those short-term objectives going to need to be? Exploration. Where do I want to go? Have they been in an environment that has really set them on a course to be able to critically think or problem solve what the options even are? What are those home lives like? So imagine that kid answering that question, where do I want to go? Preparation, how do I get there? Are they able to set goals? Are they able to connect their instruction to their interests? So think back to my park ranger. I have the hobby of being outdoors, but I don't really like to manage people. And so is the instruction and the interest going to connect, or is it okay that it's just a hobby? Participate in work, school, and community, and am I going to be able to explore my options? And then our last one is to be able to take action on that and how you can revise and update as their needs and interests and their growth occur. And again, making the parent, the guardian, an active participant in this process, or getting them a mentor, or that could be the educator themselves or someone else in the community that could help them through this process. And then the ICAP should include a career and college interest survey. It should have written post-secondary and workforce goals. It should include assessment scores. They need to have opportunity for service learning and work environment opportunities like apprenticeships, internships, mentorships, and job shadowing. And like I said, in an alternative education setting, we also have work study because they have to have a job. They have to have that income coming in to support themselves and their families. They have intentional sequences of courses, and they have to have academic progress. And again, these opportunities can either validate or eliminate certain career fields, just like my park ranger. Number 12 is life skills instruction. We focus a lot on the academics in the traditional setting. For an alternative student, again, they have to have that stability established, that rapport, that trust established sometimes before the academics can even occur because of brain development. Sometimes they're still in that fight or flight mode when they're coming into you, and that has to be settled before academic learning can occur. And this can occur through life skills instruction. It needs to be relevant to student needs and interests and goals, and it needs to promote healthy living. And that could be a wide variety of things. At lunchtime, when I was in my alt ed program, I would walk with the kids around the block. That was sometimes the only exercise they were getting, but it was also establishing those needed chemicals in the body. And a lot of times it kept them from making poor choices. And this will change depending on your student population and your student need. And it could even change as you get a new set of kids into the program. We have lots of different ways that programs are doing this. OSU Extension offers an 8-week nutrition class that a high number of our alt ed programs do tap into. It is a free 8-week course, and they come out and they teach that to your kiddos. I have some programs that have connected to different exercise instructors, like yoga instructors that come in. And I have 3 or 4 programs that do participate in equine therapy programs in their communities, working with not just taking care of the horses involved, but also working with the special needs individuals that are coming in. Or it could be a connection to your academics. I have one program last year that thought it would be a great opportunity for the students to see if they could hatch chicken eggs around Easter time. And so through the science class, they did that project. The director had it in his mind that then the chickens, if they were successful, would go be somewhere else. Now, 2 years later, he does have a chicken coop full of 11 chickens, and they all have a name. And so he does get the opportunity to take care of those 11 chickens over the summer, but you don't get rid of chickens that have names. So that's always an exciting. So it taught them a science skill, provided them a life skill, where you were working and engaging with livestock and learning about what those needs were, and also teaches the very much needed skill of empathy. Other activities that happen across the state are they go camping. This is Guyman's alt ed program, where these young men get to travel with their alt ed director, their male alt ed teacher, as well as some community leaders to Colorado every year, where young men learn to be young men. And they work on lots of soft skills, but they also work on just human being skills, as well as some academic skills as they're learning to light a fire in the middle of the wilderness. They learn to advocate for themselves while discussing their personal needs, their personal diverse needs, and their stories. And sometimes this has to happen in a very professional, public manner. And so as you can see, this picture was taken last week at the Alternative Education Advocacy Day at the Capitol, where these students are Shawnee alt ed students, talking about how they got behind academically and what choices they had to make to get there. And they were able to share their stories, you can see, with Governor Stitt, as well as their Senator Ron Sharp. Do not know the last gentleman's name. Sometimes they manage grants or activities at their schools. And so this is a farm-to-table grant that this district Comanche received. And so they get to work throughout the year with the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school around this grant. And so this is a farm-to-table grant. And so as you can see in the pictures, this alt-ed program does have 2 goats. I know one of them is Lucy. I cannot remember the boy goat's name. They also manage 50,000 honeybees. They have a greenhouse as well as raised gardens, and they had to build a fence around it because the goats ate their product. And then, as you can see, this is a picture in the other corner of them interacting with some of the pre-K kids around the honeybees. But through this grant, they have had to organize and make the activities happen. And so last year they sampled watermelons, since they're Comanche Public Schools. They're right there in the Rush Springs area, and so they went around and they got different farmers that have produce watermelons, that grow watermelons, and so they taste tested watermelons at all sites, and then they did lots of stuff that individually at their sites around all that data and all those statistics and how watermelons are grown. They've also sampled fudge, as well as toured pecan shelling and packaging plant that's in the area. They have toured Brahms, both their farm and their bakery, and taste tested ice cream and gone through who has the favorite flavor in the district. They also then take their product and they sell it at the local farmers market, and this allows them funds to purchase snacks. So they have snack time in the alt-ed every day, and so they have to sell their stuff. They have to look at how much money they make, and then they have to budget what snacks then can be purchased to feed everybody for every school for the next month. And so that's a lot of planning and budgeting and then purchasing. They have service learning projects. These 2 projects are 2 different programs that work with the Oklahoma Food Bank. Giving back time to the community makes you an active participant in the community, and that's really important, that they see you in a positive light and you have a voice as a member of the community. Several programs also participate in a civic ed program called Project Citizen. It provides an opportunity to critically think and problem solve around an issue related to your individual community. So a couple of years ago, Norman Dimensions Academy participated around some equitability in facility. And they researched lots of facilities, school building requirements and needs. And then they researched what their community needs were. And they built a research project based out of that. And so they originally presented that to their local school board. They participated in the state competition around getting them a new building to better serve their needs. And they were put on the bond this last fall, and so they were included in that bond and are now planning and preparing for a new building. Number 13 criteria is arts education. This is hands-on experience to broaden life, hands-on experiences to broaden life experiences. And so that is not just hands-on art. We partner with the Oklahoma Arts Council to provide artists and residents and those opportunities across the state in a variety of mediums like dancing, instruments, drawing, drama. But we also attend lots of different museums, the Arts Festival in the spring, lots of different opportunities. Again, it's providing them a therapeutic opportunity, an outlet, as well as education into an avenue, an experience that they might not have otherwise. And so as you can see here, we have mosaics that are just 3 pictures of them making their mosaics. These are displayed towards the end of the school year at the Comanche Art Museum, and they do host a art show that their family and friends can come and view everybody's art. This top middle picture is a group of retired ladies that love to get together and crochet, and so once a week they come to the alternative education program and they teach those students how to crochet with their different knots and designs and experiences, and then they donate those products, those baby booties, baby hats, baby blankets to the local hospital, the children's ward. And then this program also has murals throughout their building, inside and out, that they have designed around what their program does for them, around their community and their history that they have done. This program every year brings in individuals to teach them how to ballroom dance. Again, this isn't a dance step that is typical or a lot of people know, but they also, throughout this process around learning to ballroom dance, they learn life skills. They learn to dance like no one is watching, that you need to trust someone, not to be afraid to step on other people's toes. They live to live in the now, that it's okay to make mistakes, and that you just need to keep moving. Budget. Budget is a requirement in alternative education. You prepare a budget that ensures equitable services and appropriate instruction for all students in the district in a holistic manner. Evaluation, where you're going to utilize evaluation feedback, both internally and externally, because the State Department does come out and fill out an evaluation rubric for you. You have to look at your student outcomes, as well as the climate culture survey and the exit surveys for continuous program improvement based on program goals and objectives. And you serve 6th through 12th grade in your alternative education program. So it's working with those middle schoolers and getting them transitioned to high school, as well as your high school students transition to whatever those next steps may be. And then the last one again is extracurricular activities. As we've said, they give up no opportunity simply because they're in the alternative education setting. So we need to be able to participate in career tech and concurrent enrollment and other courses offered in the traditional setting like AP, electives, and art. And they need to be able to participate in extracurricular options such as athletics, band, and clubs. Making sure that that connection is maintained will keep them connected to the school. So those are the 17 criteria in law. This is my contact information. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Are there any questions? All right. Well then, without further ado, I will hand it back over to Chelsea.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was very good information. I always like to say this is what the purpose of our webinars are all about, to get our internal and our external stakeholders to just give you an awareness of how, with ICAP coming down the pipeline, how college and career readiness is valuable for all students. So thank you, Jennifer, for that perspective. I want to let you know about our next ICAP webinar. It is going to be Thursday, April 18th. 2019. To register, I've included the link for you. And our voice from the field this month will be Dr. Mary Waters Bilbo. She is currently the Executive Director of the Oklahoma School Counselor Association Board, and she is also an Associate Professor of Psychology and Counseling at Northeastern State University. A little bit more about Dr. Waters. She has served on the OSCA Board for 10 years. She was a school counselor, and she continues to identify as a school counselor. Dr. Waters will share about implementing a quality career development program in schools, the importance of having purpose in your life, and how important purpose is to adolescents, especially those in trauma, And Dr. Waters will speak to her experience serving on a counselor cadre that created the ICAP implementation toolkit. So always want you guys to stay connected with us. There is a link for our ICAP newsletter sign up for the College and Career Readiness. And this is also where you'll find updates about the ICAP webinar series and just anything that's coming surrounding College and Career Readiness and ICAP as well. We love to have you stay connected with our Twitter and Facebook. Post some photos about good things that are happening in your districts. Let us know how you're structuring things for College and Career Readiness. And then lastly, I would like to share with you our student support team. So if you ever need to contact anyone in our office, this is the Office of Student Support, and so you have all of our emails, and we'd be glad to help you in any way that we can. And then lastly, I just included some common definitions for you so you can look at that through your own pleasure of your computer. Again, this webinar has been recorded. You will find it on our okedge.com website. And we thank you so very much for your time. And I just wanted to open it up if there's any further questions. Okay, have a wonderful rest of your spring break, and we will see you later. We'll see you next time. That's how I like to say it.